Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for Monday, May 8th, 2023. We have a declaration of a quorum with all members present. Good to see everybody. Please join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone this evening. Mr. Smith, any changes to the agenda? Okay, we have a couple of proclamations. First, we're going to start with the presentation. So we'll get to the proclamations after the all super important Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Bacon. Welcome back, Mr. Bacon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Well,
Is your microphone on?
well,
No.
there's a lot of buttons over here.
Yeah, complicated enough.
My wife tells me I'm pretty good at pushing them,
Different one.
enrollment numbers from last month to this month have remained steady with no increase. But from a year ago, we're down about 23 students from April last year. So this is from April up to April 28th. And calendar. Last month, the board will be taking action tonight to amend the school calendar. So we'll be working on that. Or talking about doing that, but right now we're looking at teachers will be starting August 21st, so this next school year, and students, it is looking like they'll be starting on August 30th. So we're already knee deep, well I'll just say we're neck deep into getting ready for next year, so it's going strong and preparing and moving forward, so that's kind of fun to start talking about next school year. Coming up though, May 12th is a non-student day. It will be a teacher in service work day. And then will be the power push towards the last couple weeks of school as we jump into June here. We get into May and school goes really, really fast. We've been able to host 4 different kinder registration events out of the district office, and up to this point right now, we've had right at 239 kindergartners register, which is a good start, a little bit ahead of where we were at last year with registration numbers. So we're excited to see those come in. And not many parents are thinking about kindergarten starting right now, so we're happy to get those numbers so far. Construction, still rocking and rolling. The annex is coming along, still on track to be have ribbon cutting in August. We've got rooms where counters and cupboards are up and being put in and installed, and the floors are finished and polished. So they're working on the main entry right now, doing some work on that. So we need to watch it evolve here as we start pushing forward with it. Another project at the high school that will be taking place this summer is we'll be updating lights and sound in the auditorium, and then also be upgrading Hermiston TVs throughout the high school. That'll start our transition throughout the district to be upgrading our Hermiston boards. You might have noticed if you've driven by Highland Hills, they got a little bit going on there. So they've taken out the front parking lot and are beginning construction. They're moving the playground from the north side over to the south side of the campus as they get ready to do some upgrades to Highland Hills right now. The batting cage and facility has been something we've been wondering about. So it is with the Booster Club at this point. One of the points of discussion right now has been restrooms and how to get that established and taken care of. And so right now Booster Club is working on that part of it. Tonight at the board meeting, we're able to recognize FBLA. I talked about them last month when we were here as far as how they did, and it was neat to see the kids up in front of the school board and receive their certificates and shake hands tonight. Desert View is also presenting tonight at the board, and they were really fast with their Pledge of Allegiance. You can definitely tell they've got it down really good. Math adoption and curriculum has been going on and for 7 months now. And tonight there'll be a recommendation before the board for our new math curriculum that'll be out for next year. So we're looking forward to getting started with that and training staff. And then a big event that's taking place the 11th of May over at Rocky Heights is going to be our Students with Disabilities and Family Resource Fair. And this is, we've got, Maria will probably correct me, but I believe there's right around 28 different vendors that'll have tables throughout Rocky Heights and just different resources and different contacts that families can make across there. So our director, Ms. McKay, has been working pretty hard and her team to get that established and help build a stronger connection and get people involved with the district and across our community. So that is almost as fast as the Desert View kids Pledge Allegiance.
Last day of school?
12th, I believe.
12th. Graduation is
June.
Any other questions from the
14th?
Yeah, 14.
14th is
Yeah, the 14th is last day for kids.
Communications expert doesn't know it all.
I misled you, Maria. I apologize.
It's the kids counting down that help me know that was not
That's right.
All right, any other questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Bacon.
Thanks. Have a great night.
See you. All right, we have a couple proclamations this evening, and I'm going to read both of them. I'm going to start out with the first one, which is proclamation for National Police Week, May 14th through May 20th, which is next week. To recognize National Police Week 2023 and to honor those currently serving, those retired from service, and the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the 30 sworn and 8 non-sworn members of the Hermiston Police Department. Whereas over 55,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 15,000 injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, just under 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including one member of the Hermiston Police Department, Ronald G. Kilby, end of watch Thursday, October 8th, 1959. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas 559 new names of fallen heroes will be added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. Now therefore be it resolved, the City of Hermiston formally designates May 14th through 20th, 2023 as National Police Week and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and all communities across the nation. Signed this 8th day of May 2023 by myself, Dr. Dave Trotzman. It's always an honor and a privilege to recognize the women and men in blue, the service that they provide to our great city. It's always sad to talk about the potential injury or harm to our officers, and so I know that their lives on the line every day for us to keep us safe. And so please pass along our sincere appreciation for their diligence in keeping us safe.
Yes, sir.
Second proclamation, which I actually got to read to the Altrusa group last Thursday at their Altrusa meeting. They had their incoming district governor, Ms. McBee from Pendleton. Whereas Altrusa International was established on April 13, 1917, and now boasts over 9,850 members in the United States and 8 other countries. And whereas the motto, patriotism, efficiency, service, and the tagline, leading to a better community, speaks to the commitment of service locally and abroad. And whereas Altrusa International of Hermiston has supported numerous community and international projects such as the Oxbow Trail, Funland Park, Girls Night In, Battle of the Books, Little free libraries, refurbishment to the Department of Human Services Visitors Room, rooms at Martha's House and Agape House, remodeling the downstairs of the Hermiston Library, yearly cleanup of Bell Park, food for Red Cross blood drives, the backpack program, Highway 395 service organization signage, a new van for Made to Thrive, little dresses for Africa and Haiti, dolls for overseas projects, the African Water Project, supporter of the microloans in third world countries, Shelter Box International, Cartina de Amor. And whereas Altrusa International Hermiston recognizes the importance of the youth of our community and sponsored the Hermiston Chamber Young Citizen of the Year Award for many years until the program was discontinued in 2023. And whereas Altrusa International Hermiston is invested in continuing education for citizens of Western Utah County and North Morrill County, striving to complete post-high school education and or training by providing scholarships twice yearly. And whereas Altrusa International Hermiston is celebrating 45 years of service in the greater Hermiston area, now therefore be it resolved by Dr. David Drothman, Mayor of the City of Hermiston, do hereby proclaim May 8, 2023 as Altrusa Day and hereby honor these citizens who work to make a good investment in Hermiston. So, Altrusa is an organization that helps to provide community volunteerism to support numerous projects, as I highlighted there. It was my honor to support them at their luncheon last Thursday and to recognize them for their great community service. It's not, the community itself is not necessarily about the institutions that are here or the bricks and mortar. It's about the individuals within that community and the service that they provide through our volunteerism. So organizations like Altrusa make this a better place to live. So thank you to Altrusa as well. All right, now we're on to our first opportunity for citizen input. So citizens that are here this evening that would like to speak to an item that's not on our agenda. So an item not listed on the agenda that you saw when you walked in this evening, please come up to the microphone up front. Introduce yourself by name and address. Try to limit your comments to less than 5 minutes and direct them to me. Who wants to go first? Chaplain, you have something special?
Mine is a thank you.
Come on up. We like to hear thank yous.
Jerry Cummings, 426 Northeast Covey Court here in Hermiston. I just want to say thank you to you as the city council, city manager, mayor who support our police department. These guys and gals, because I get to work with them very closely, put their lives on the line daily. And I just want to thank you for the way that you support them. You've heard the chief's report already tonight, but thank you for what you do. And if there's any way I can encourage you to increase his budget, I would also do that. Each of you have a magnet on your desk there in front of you. I also have blue ribbons for National Police Week. The problem with these is there's hardly a vehicle that has an antenna anymore. So find something to do with it. If you need magnets or if you need ribbons more for yourself or for your business, please let me know. I'll get them to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. We owe you a sincere thank you as well. The chaplain service plays an important role in our public safety, and you help our officers get through every day. And so we appreciate you and the fellow chaplains and the service that you're providing to them. So thank you. And it'll be my honor. I still have a real antenna, and I always have my blue flag flying from it. So.
Is it true that they reduce your chances of being pulled over?
You know, I'm not sure. I don't think there's any validity to that.
If you're a Ducks fan, it does not.
The station carries the Beavers.
I think that was a poke at me. All right, consent agenda. So anyone need to pull any of the items on the consent agenda, items A or B? Okay, any public comment about consent agenda items A or B? Okay, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A and B?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved by Councilor Pepper, second by Councilor McCarthy, that we approve consent agenda items A and B. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. No items removed. On to resolution number 2270, resolution declaring a public necessity to acquire real property for the Getman Road Extension Project. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Morgan to
Mr. Morgan?
handle this item.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening I'll be presenting to you Resolution 2270, which is a resolution of necessity to acquire right-of-way for the extension of Getman Road on the southern side of the city. So again, Resolution 2270, speaking to a new public road extending Getman Road from its existing terminus with its intersection of South First Place off to the east to connect up with US Highway 395. It declares a necessity for the economic well-being, public health, safety, and welfare of the community to acquire the right-of-way. To give everybody there's going to be a lot of maps here, so get ready. Give everybody a sense of where we're talking here. This is a aerial image of the city looking off to the north. Generally speaking, this is the existing right-of-way for Getman Road, and then what we're talking about acquiring is right-of-way generally along that route to connect up with US 395. So by way of background, you're all well aware of the Union Pacific branch line. There's two rail lines that go through the city. This black line that I've shown there represents the branch line that heads off to Umatilla and effectively carves the city in half. As a result of that, the city's grown up around the railroad, but as a result of that, we have 5 railroad crossings of that rail line through the city, but really only 3 of them provide full east-west access for motorists and pedestrians all the way from the west side of the city to the east side of the city, those being Highland Avenue as well as Elm Avenue. Those are the 2 that I would really consider to be actually in town. The others that we have that don't quite go all the way across the city are largely concentrated in the downtown core area, going back to near the community's founding. So I'm thinking about those crossings like Main and Locust here. If you're heading off to the west on Locust, it eventually just kind of terminates in a residential neighborhood. Also, to the north of us here, there's a crossing that takes traffic on Hermiston Avenue, turns into Gladys, and then again, similarly, just kind of terminates into a residential neighborhood on the east side of the city. So Elm and Highland being the only 2 that really cross all the way across the entire city in the main part of the city. But then also, technically, Feedville Road counts as one of our other crossings of the rail line over here by Highway 207. But again, it's clear down on the southern edge of our urban growth boundary and is essentially 2 miles to the south of the Highland Avenue crossing there. So as we continue to see residential, commercial, and industrial growth off to the south, there's really a need to add an additional crossing that goes all the way across the city. So currently, the white section that I showed there, that is the existing section of Getman Road that currently goes from Highway 207 to South First. Currently already crosses the rail line there, but this red section there does not exist at all currently in terms of any right-of-way or any type of semblance of a roadway. So again, that's the crux of this issue this evening, is acquiring approximately that red section there so that we can have an additional connection between Highway 207 on the west and Highway 395 on the east. So this is not a new issue that has come up. It's been something that the community's been well aware of for many years. I don't expect you to actually be able to read this map. This is our adopted transportation system plan, but it generally gives you the idea. You can see on the transportation system plan that's been adopted for over 20 years at this point, we've always shown a need for eventually extending Getman Road from South First up to Highway 395 over here on the east. So from as far as all of the items that we mentioned in the resolution for the necessity of establishing that Getman Road right-of-way piece, One of those is community well-being, and one of those being economic community well-being. So this is a map that just generally shows you the adopted comprehensive plan for the community. And generally speaking, the pinks, purples, and blues represent commercial and industrially zoned or planned development within our urban growth area, which generally correlate to employment opportunities, job opportunities for people in the community. Things that are shaded in various forms of green there are either inside or outside of the city limits. The red dashed line is the city limits. Everything that's colored outside of there is inside of our UGB, but outside of the city limits. And so the greens generally represent anything that is either currently residential or planned for future additional residential growth. So ultimately, one of the things that we're talking about here with the community economic well-being of making this connection, again, represented by that rough red sketch there of Getman Road extension, is to enable either existing residents or potential future residents in future residential developments to access employment opportunities in the southern industrial part of the community. Zooming in a little bit closer on that same map, this right here is South First Place. This is the existing Getman Road right-of-way. I've just penciled in there generally where we're talking about for the Getman Road extension. Again, from an economic well-being standpoint, one of those components being the supply of necessary housing for workforce in the community. Again, you can see the red dashed line is the existing city limits, but everything that's shaded with the color is inside of our urban growth boundary. So you can see this entire area down in that area is planned for future residential development, and there's several hundred acres of readily developable, undeveloped, large acreage parcels for future residential development. So from a community housing and workforce development standpoint, it's really necessary to help us make that connection so that no one individual developer has to go in and try to assemble all of that right away in order to make something develop from a housing standpoint. Additionally, as far as public necessity for the right-of-way, one of those being enhancing public safety and access to emergency services. This is just one example of any number that I'm sure anybody could come up with in terms of how making this new connection of Getman Road, which is generally shown by this section through there, would operate and would help reduce response times and increase access to emergency services. This is an example just highlighted by an icon of a blue flashing light. I think it's very plausible that there could be an opportunity where, whether it's police or fire or other emergency services, have whatever assets, personnel stationed or actively located out at the East Northern Trade and Events Center. In that vicinity, meanwhile, there's a call for service. Over here, this represents Armand Larvey Middle School over here, just off of Getman Road. Currently, if some emergency service personnel are located over here in this region of the community and they're trying to respond to a call at Armand Larvey, they really only have two even possible options to get there. They can follow the red alignment, follow 395 all the way up to Highland, go through the congested, potentially pedestrians in the vicinity of the high school, going through multiple signalized or stop sign controlled intersections in order to get there. Or the other option is to double back essentially and go all the way down to Feedville and come all the way around and hope that you don't get caught by a unit train on the Union Pacific's main line to get to Getman. So this, again, like I said, just one of many examples that shows really how making that connection on Getman Road helps us make it across the railroad line there with emergency services in the southern side of the city. Additionally, this zooms in a lot more granularly into detail of where we're talking about here. Probably difficult to understand this map, but this road right here, that is South First. This area over here, that is Highway 395. This area right here is the existing right-of-way for Getman. And so all of these various spaghetti lines that you see shown, drawn on there, are various iterations and options that our engineers of Anderson Perry looked at and preliminarily designed for potential options there. So first off, when we're looking at how do we actually come up with the proposed alignment that's included in this resolution, Number one is safety, and inside of that, there's the safety of the intersection alignment. And so there's really two major intersections that we're looking at for the alignment, one being with the intersection at South First, then the other being the alignment of the intersection at Highway 395. You can see there were a couple of options looking at potentially skirting around the property there by the intersection of First and Getman. Ultimately, the one that is proposed is to maintain a straight 90-degree angle intersection at that intersection of Getman and First for a number of safety reasons with dealing with a skewed intersection with sight angles and those types of things, as well as just what the motoring public is expecting as they're coming up to intersections. So ultimately that decision was made for the intersection safety to keep a square T'd intersection through that connection point there. Then on the east side, it was there was a lot more logical connections made there, mainly because of the topography of Highway 395 coming through there, coming down the hill. In our transportation system plan, we're showing a future traffic signal at the intersection with Pork Drive. But really what was taken into account with the alignment on this one is you can see we are calling for a new public street to access the cemetery, basically coming along the property lines here and teeing into the road. That is rather than accommodating some type of alignment through the cemetery district's property to connect up more closely to the intersection there, or maintaining the existing driveway and having potentially a driveway within just a couple of feet of a major intersection there. So both of those were the safety considerations that were taken into account for the alignment of the roadway. Once we had the two endpoints there, then we started looking at the safety implications for making that connection for the roadway speeds. So that section of Getman Road is a minor collector designation in our transportation system plan. For those of you who don't read our TSP every single night and have it memorized, that is equivalent to what Theater Lane is on the north side of town. So it's slightly lower classification actually than Highland Avenue, but it's the same classification as Theater Lane. So in order to design to the speeds that are called for a minor collector, that's where we looked at making the curves able to accommodate those 30 to 35 mile an hour design speeds of the roadway. So that's why you see some of the curves occurring the way that they do there. Finally, after we've looked at the safety and the functionality of the roadway, that's when we then start to look at the cost of the alignment. And so that's again where what we're looking at for the alignment there. It is the most cost effective given the considerations that we've made for safety and functionality. And again, a lot of that cost comes in the form of making sure that it's just simply the shortest, most direct route. That not only means less right-of-way that has to be acquired, but also means just simply less materials, those types of things going into the roadway once it actually gets developed. So Resolution 2270 directs city staff to actually hire the appraisers, negotiators, other consultants to begin good faith negotiations with the property owners through that corridor, and also direct staff to ensure that we provide fair compensation to the property owners for their right of way. And again, that's where the appraisers come in. That's a major component of this process, is that we get a fair market value for the property, offer that to make sure that when we're purchasing it, it's a fair compensation for the property owner, as well as not a price that is overly astronomical for the taxpayers when we're going out and acquiring this to benefit the public. Yeah, and then also Resolution 2270 directs staff to actually obtain the right of way for that fair compensation. So the next steps, again, I mentioned begin property owner negotiations. We have been working with Epic Land Solutions. They do real estate right of way acquisition across the Pacific Northwest pretty extensively, and so they're our sub-consultant for doing the actual real estate acquisition process. Also probably important for everybody to know, it hasn't been a secret by any means over the last couple of years. We've been putting out news releases the last couple of years that we are one of our main priorities for the city is development of what we're calling the Getman Road Alternative Transportation Enhancement Project to connect Highway 207 and Highway 395. There's been a number of news articles on it out there in the paper, but then also we mailed certified mail overnight notices to all of the property owners impacted by the proposed alignment of what the intention is. So they should have received all of those, again, by certified mail last Tuesday. So they've been made aware of the exact details of what the proposal is as well. From a financial impact standpoint, some of that is still to be determined. The right-of-way price, I mean, we can get into a general ballpark, but the actual price for the right-of-way itself is really going to be determined through the appraisal process. For the upcoming fiscal year 24 budget, I did include $300,000 for right-of-way acquisition. Probably a starting point. We'll kind of see where that goes. It's a placeholder to the actual acquisition of the real estate itself is probably going to be a relatively smaller portion of the process if there gets into being legal fees and contesting the acquisition. So, but I think that's a good ballpark figure for now for the all-in costs of all of the right-of-way acquisition at this point. Also important to keep in mind that this action this evening is only speaking to acquisition of the right-of-way itself. We are still actively in the process of seeking funding for constructing the actual roadway. We're out soliciting funds from local, state, and federal agencies to make that connection in our community. And I'm sure many of you are aware that one of the first questions that any granting or funding agency asks is, do you have the right-of-way in place? And so it's something of a chicken and egg type of a scenario. And so we've gotten to the point now where it's become necessary that in order to get the roadway constructed on a timeline that meets the benefit of the public, we're acquiring the right-of-way now and then seeking, hopefully that bolsters our application for construction funding in the next couple of years. So your alternatives, approve the resolution, reject the resolution, or request amendments. And I recommend approval of Resolution 2270. Any questions?
Thank you, Mark. What was the budget? This is phase 2, phase 3, phase 2.
So for the Getman Road Alternative Transportation Enhancement Project, this is what we called phase 2.
Okay. What's the budget?
Total construction budget for the roadway itself is about $2.8 million. Again, it's important to keep in mind when we talk about that, that is really very similar to what we did when we built East Theater Lane, where we're really only talking about the travel lanes. So we're not talking curb, gutter, sidewalk, that type of stuff, because the intent is that we're coming in providing the piece that really benefits the general public, and then as development occurs along that route, then those developers would come in and put in the curb, gutter, and sidewalk.
That we require.
Yep.
The other question I had was, since these notices have gone out, have you got any public feedback yet?
I've not gotten any feedback from any of the property owners.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Chris, Mr. Burke?
So in looking at this resolution, you're asking us to give you power for eminent domain takeover tonight before you start making any type of negotiations?
Correct.
I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, and so we've been working with our land use attorneys and our real estate acquisition attorneys, and so this is the process, this is the sequencing that they recommend that we proceed with.
I have a question. I would like to know, do you have a report from the fire department with their involvement in this area you were saying for emergency services? Can you have someone come and speak on this, or do you have a report?
I haven't spoken with them on this item specifically.
Okay. Can you let me know why, please?
What would you be wanting from that report?
Well, you were saying that it's benefiting the emergency services, so if it's benefiting emergency services, I'm pretty sure they have gone through the route and wrote up something, so I would like to see what they said.
Well, I mean, frankly, we can ask them and have them come, but they typically don't address right-of-way or anything. They rely on us to provide them the way to get to and from emergency situations.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to ask Chief Stanton to address the subject, but they would appreciate any additional routes to every property in the city, it would be my guess.
And I think, I showed just an example map. There's any number of different, iterations that you could think of. I think when you talk to folks from the fire district or the police department, their folks are out there a lot. They're not just sitting at the fire station, waiting for a call to come in. And so they're out and about in the community a lot. And so I think it's very reasonable to assume that there's going to be opportunities where their staff, they're with an ambulance or they're with a piece of fire equipment, out somewhere in that other area of the community, and they get a call somewhere from elsewhere in the community. So I feel pretty confident that they're going to have the same positive reaction, that this would help increase their ability to respond to calls when they come.
Okay, I would like to know, trying to get this straight in my head. You want to go, the route is going to go by the cemetery, down past that ditch, coming off of 395, and then going over to, and it'll reach Highway 207. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And you did have another route as well. What's the second route? I would like to write that down. Where it starts in the streets.
Yeah, ultimately, the other routes were just various iterations of that exact same route. So if you look on the screen here, this is actually an image from early on in the process. In your council staff report, it has surveyed descriptions of each of the properties individually, but it doesn't show on an overall map. It shows all the various options. But again, as you were mentioning, what we're talking about in general terms is making this connection here at 395, following this orange alignment along the canal with an offset from the canal, crossing. So we're going through cemetery district property all the way along here. We're hitting a private residential property through here. Then we connect up with a agricultural farming operation with this property. Then we curve across the A-line canal here. Again, still, this is where we make the transition from the orange alignment to purple alignment. And then the purple alignment comes here and connects up directly into the existing right-of-way where Getting the Road meets First Place.
I noticed that you sent out certified mail on the 2nd, so that was 6 days, only 6 days ago. And
yeah, so it was overnight, so they received it on the 2nd.
so they received it on the 2nd, so that'd be 6 days ago. And then we're meeting tonight. I think that's kind of too close of a time. I think we should, in my opinion, extend our time or postpone this for at least a couple of months. And plus, we're going to be discussing some budget issues, and I think that we need to kind of take all of that into consideration.
Other questions? Yes, Ms. Myers?
Okay, so fire would not be the only public, safety issue there. The police would also benefit from having that other road to go on. So it's got huge public benefit.
Well, I think if you wanted public safety input, you should ask your chief of police for public
Well, I
safety
think
input.
I was did that. Yeah.
So I'll probably sound like a broken record, but in essence, what we're talking about here is traffic. And there's 3 E's to traffic. There's education, enforcement, and engineering. Those are the 3 E's. Police department is involved in education and enforcement. We typically stay out of the engineering aspect just so it doesn't look like we're setting ourselves up to write more tickets. Having said that, based on the comment I heard, I would assume Chief Stanton would feel the same way I do, specific to being able to jump from one part of the town to the other part of the town without, in a straight line is quicker than having to go around. And so as the city continues to grow to the south, the housing development out there, this could be advantageous.
Thank you.
Ms. Morgan, to follow up on process, this resolution starts the conversation. So essentially gives the administration the authority to go out and start a proper negotiation. Communicate with the landowners, try to discuss a negotiation to acquire that property, explain the process of what we're going through. But we also are hiring contracted staff to negotiate in good faith, to try and communicate what the value of that property is and try and negotiate. There's always negotiation in there, right? So property owner can come back and say, I don't like that appraisal, I'm gonna get a different appraisal, and they can come back and say, this is my appraisal. And then there's negotiation. So that's all part of it. Yeah, so we've hired individuals that are professionals at this to do that. If it gets to the end and we can't agree, there's an eminent domain process, right? But in our state, there's also appeals processes. So the actual landowner has an opportunity through this process to engage at multiple different points and or appeal a decision that we come up with. Is that fairly accurate from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, and I think probably the simplest way of looking at what we're doing this evening is it necessary for the public to have the right-of-way that we're talking about this evening? Moving forward then, we would, like you mentioned, hire the consultants to establish what's a reasonable and fair compensation and try as much as we could to get an amicable sale from that standpoint. If it reached a point where that wasn't possible, then it gives us the ability to go to the court, deposit an amount equal to what that determined by an appraiser price is with the court, and then as has been determined that the real estate is necessary, then the city would take ownership of that section of the right-of-way, and then after that, to your point about appeals and those types of things, that's then when the property owner has the ability to continue to make their case to the court, say, well, really I should have been compensated double this amount, those types of things. And so that's really where their opportunity is for increasing their compensation if they feel like they were unjustly compensated.
Then there's a process to appeal it even higher, right? LUBA?
I don't know to LUBA, but it's really through.
It's not out there. Okay, just local decision.
Yeah.
Well, through that process, we go to the Court of Appeals of that direction.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Peterson.
And in the process of them pursuing, their options, I assume that we would expect them to cover their own legal costs, or is there a way? Because what I hear is that, yeah, they could consider to continue to, say that they don't like the decision and follow it through the process, but that's just going to be racking up their legal fees, and that's going to kind of when we might be talking about somebody just wanting to keep their yard.
Yeah, so without getting into advising the property owners on what their options are, the legal fees are always an option for negotiation and request through the court that the city reimburse them on the back end of the process if that's something that they went through. By way of example, council probably remembers we went through this same process and declared a resolution of necessity back in 2016, I believe, for the North Hermiston water tower property. We acquired 1.5 acres of property, filed with circuit court, and deposited a check for $115,000. Immediately became the owners of that acre and a half of property. After working with the property owner again for quite some time, we ended up compensating them in the range of just under $200,000, and a lot of that included their attorney's fees.
Councilor Rowe?
Is there a deadline for folks to, now that it's on, is there a deadline for people to let you know once they receive that certified letter?
So again, with the process that we'll be starting now, the intention is to engage in good faith negotiations first off, so it will be a while before we got to a point where we need to set a deadline that, okay, we need, the property is necessary for the public's needs, and so that's still going to be several months down the road.
Okay, I've got 2 other questions. In the process, I can appreciate Councilor Linton, wanting some input from our emergency services personnel. In the process, when are they informed, or what is their input that they provide in this process?
Yeah, so again, as City Manager Smith mentioned, they don't typically get involved in the actual roadway design aspect of that. So without getting too hung up and drilled in on the public safety routing aspect, that's just one of the components that was itemized out as a necessity for the public good there. So again, as City Manager Smith mentioned, the public safety agencies rely on us to provide the roadways, but they don't typically get involved on the front end of acquiring what those right-of-ways look like. And this is a unique one because it really is part of the larger kind of macro scale transportation network in the city. So most of the right-of-way and streets that we see get developed are being developed by private developers. If they have 40 acres and they're building a subdivision or something like that, then we do involve the public safety agencies. The fire district is involved when we have them come in for development application, that type of thing, and so they talk about what the routing and alignment of the roadway is at that point. But that's again really talking more about just local streets. This is really about establishing a major corridor to serve local streets off of that.
My other question is, if this is not approved, what does this mean to the city? I remember when the mayor and I served on the school board, we often talked about if a bond didn't pass, what that would implicate, if the construction prices would go up, how will this impact us?
You're going to get a lot more complaints about First and Highland. I think. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. I mean, if this doesn't pass, that connection of Gitman Road has been on the transportation system plan for over 20 years. As the community has started to grow out in that vicinity, you're going to continue to see more and more people living down there, generating traffic, and ultimately funneling down to that First and Highland intersection by the high school. So there will reach a point where that intersection becomes non-functional, and some really significant costs are going to be incurred trying to facilitate traffic flow through that intersection.
And public safety issues, like kids walking through there all the time. So what is the development of the, I don't even remember what the Highlands project or what Prairie Meadows project, when's that supposed to develop?
I mean, you're probably still not going to see a house pop out of the ground for about 3 years.
And then how long is this process?
Well, it all depends on when we would actually get construction funding. So again, that's an important piece to keep in mind, is that we're only talking about acquiring the right-of-way, and then after that, we don't have the actual $2.7 million for construction. But I think without the right-of-way in place, it just sets us that much further back for ever acquiring the capital funding.
Yeah, Councilor Brown.
Assistant City Manager Morgan, how long has the public known about the great project, and how long has the city been putting it out there for?
Gosh, probably 3 to 4 years at this point.
So property owners, for the most part, have been aware that this project is going on.
I've received a lot of calls over the years, mainly from folks that are on Getman, or they're looking at some property on the existing portion of Getman, because people are aware of it and they know about it and they want to know, what's that going to look like? Is it going to be a freeway or truck route or those types of things that come up. So we do get questions and comments about it because people are aware of that.
And the city has had ongoing communication, or at least communication with property owners regarding this project?
So we've made official notification to all the property owners last week, but we've been in conversation mainly with the cemetery district because it's the single largest property that we'd be going through. We've been talking with them clear back to 2016.
Understand. The Northeast Water Tower, the process that we ended up going through a few years back, do you think it's been successful for the community?
Absolutely, yeah.
And even though this process is at some points uncomfortable, especially if we have to go to the end, do you think it ultimately benefits the community as a whole?
Yes, I mean, that's really the crux of the question for this evening is that right-of-way necessary? And we wouldn't be bringing it to you if I didn't think that right-of-way is necessary for the future of the community.
I appreciate your presentation. I myself, when we were here for the water project, I know it was a process for sure, and I know the topic of eminent domain can be difficult, but ultimately this process is only done for the greater good of the community. I believe that Water Tower has been successful not only for property growth, for housing development, but also we were able to partner with the school district in order to get a new school put in place. Moreover, I think this project that's upcoming, I believe public safety is a huge importance to me. And knowing that our city is continuing to grow, knowing how traffic is, knowing how some people drive around here, I think it ultimately is going to benefit pedestrians that are walking, especially in Highland first place, right? Commuters as well, giving them more options. I think it's going to help, as you mentioned before, fire and police department to be able to get throughout town in quicker and safer ways. It's important that I believe that we get this project up and going. I know that we don't have the funds for construction, but as you mentioned before, and as we know as counselors, the more that we wait on a project, the more construction cost continues to go up. And I think it's really important for you as city staff to do the work and go out there and find funds, whether it's state funds, federal funds. I think the earlier that you guys can start on this, the more it's going to benefit the community as a whole. So I believe this project is essential for our growth. It's essential for public safety, and I think that we need this.
You said that you sent out certified mail. Before this, you were saying that you've talked to homeowners. Have any of them said they did not want to sell their land?
I haven't heard that from any of them.
Of the one you talked to all the homeowners, that's going to be effective, and no one has said that they were against selling their land.
No, so the official notice to all of the, and that's one of the other components here is that there's 5 impacted properties there. There's been a couple of property sales in the past 5 years since we've begun going down this process. And so the property that's now residential there by the cemetery, that used to be owned by the cemetery, I believe it was acquired by one of their staff members. But so we've talked with most of the property owners at some point through the process, but their first official notification to everyone about this exact alignment was last week.
I just have a little difficulty with the notice being sent down on the 2nd. I feel that we should give them more time, at least a month, let them know that they can come to a meeting and voice their opinion on how they feel about their land being almost taken, because if you don't have a choice, then it is taken. And so I would like for them to have the opportunity to at least come and speak to the council about their opinion of this before we actually move forward. I wouldn't want anyone to come take my little property. I don't have much, but to say it's the betterment of the entire community, and where do I go from there, you know? Being African American, that family used to have a lot of acres of land and in the South, and seeing others that have lost land, usually all of their land, eminent domain to me is like a sore subject. So I want to be fair to the people that own property and listen to what they have to say. If we have to vote yes on it and go for it, then that's one thing, but at least give them an opportunity to speak.
Councilor Peterson.
My thoughts reflect Councilor Linton's, and it's that and also Councilor Barnes, and that, I do see how this is, could be beneficial to the community as a whole, but I know that if I get something in the mail, it may sit on my table for a day or two before I get to it, and then suddenly I got a schedule to come in and figure out how I'm going to talk to a bunch of people and make my concerns known. It's like I'm going to want to talk to the people who know things and see what my resources are first. And I think that if we don't at least give our community members that, then we are doing them a disservice by saying, yes, we want to hear from you, but it needs to be within this small window. It's like, if this has been a project that's been ongoing for this amount of time, we can at least wait another couple of weeks. just to make sure that we are giving people a chance to talk to who they feel confident in getting opinions from. As I said, I do see the benefit of this in the community. I am kind of curious, it's like, you know, I know that we're not asking the fire and police that who actually go on these roads to, you know, come in and talk to us, because, you know, we can talk to outside agencies, but I like hearing from the people who actually live here, because they're the ones who are also going to then have to, you know, keep an eye out for speeders and everything else that's going to happen. It's like, how is that going to impact services overall? So I just think that, you know, brushing this on the exact homeowners and say, okay, well now it's happening for real, I think that does us a disservice, and it doesn't, I don't think it reflects well upon us as neighbors in addition to city councilors.
Councilor Burns.
So I will agree 100% that the road is needed. It's definitely necessary. And you know, as a first responder myself, getting from point A to point B is imperative, and doing so in a rapid manner. Where my problem lies in this entire process is pre-authorizing eminent domain. Eminent domain is one of the most serious things that I think that we can do to the citizens of any area. I think you know, taking the taking of property, even though we're giving fair compensation, but the giving no recourse prior to is, in my opinion, the wrong thing to do. We, you know, if the eminent domain was taken out of this process, fine. But give us the opportunity that if we have to exercise eminent domain, that is a separate process from this particular situation.
Yeah, and so just real quick to kind of maybe explain a little more on that aspect as far as why we're coming to it from the sequencing that we are, and why it's advised by council, and potentially why it's legally required is because if we begin to engage in negotiation with the property owner without declaring our intent to potentially utilize eminent domain, and then we come back later and then declare that we're going to use eminent domain, it's not exactly negotiating in good faith. If we've always held that back in our back pocket and then we come in and say that we're going to use eminent domain. Additionally, just from a defensibility standpoint as well, I think it raises the question of, well, ultimately what we're doing is we're declaring that it's necessary for the public good, and so if we choose not to say that it's necessary now, then we choose to say that it's necessary later. It doesn't take a very good attorney to point out, well, why wasn't it necessary then, and all of a sudden it is now that we've gotten down this process and engaged in this negotiation process. So that's ultimately why, I mean, I agree it's a challenging sequencing, but that's again what our attorneys have advised, that's the way to approach it. So again, the intent is to engage them in good faith negotiations, and I think maybe to explain a little bit, you know, what does that look like? You know, so you take, you know, 10 different types of agricultural land, you know, and recent sales around greater Hermiston, and you say, okay, well, it was, you know, an average of X amount per square foot of real estate. Okay, I mean, that gives you one data point, but it's really different if maybe that goes right through some improvements like the irrigation box or something like that. And so those are the opportunities that allow us to begin working with the property owner and make sure that we're trying to come up with a reasonable compensation for what they should be compensated. So, but it prevents them from saying, well, that's my platinum coated irrigation box, and it's really worth, you know, 100 times what it's actually worth.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
can I?
Yep.
And just another, I mean, starting this process doesn't preclude them from coming to a future council meeting, because there will be further decisions that the council makes in this process. And so, you know, this is to allow us to start, and we're trying to follow the legal advice to start it in the proper way so that we can get to the end that we all hope for. Now, we don't hope that we have to take it. We hope that we can negotiate a fair price and everybody's happy when we walk away. We were able to do that with Mr. the Almager family, but you know, we can never guarantee it, so we have to start this way to get to that end. So it doesn't stop them from coming in the future, even next meeting, and say, we don't like it, don't do it. But we haven't even had a chance to explain to them what we might pay for their property. And so that's why we're trying to get into that process at this point.
I think it's a process that none of us looks forward to. You know, the challenges of growing community sometimes force our hands in some of these decisions. We have to look out for the future of our community, and that's what we as the city fathers and mothers, the city leaders, are elected to do. And we have to do what's in the best interest of the community. And part of that is finding alternative routes of transportation, public safety, egress, access to property. And part of that has to have conversations with neighbors that, you know, we need access to that property. And so it's never comfortable. None of us is excited about it. Just so to think that you're the only one that has uncomfortableness with it, that would be inaccurate. I think we're all uncomfortable about that. But there are certain legal steps that we have to go through in order to start this negotiation. And this is just given the authority of the administration. If we really believe that this is important and necessary for the future of our community, then we need to go through this process, even though it's uncomfortable. Councilor Burrow.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Morgan and City Manager Smith, for clarifying, and I think those are important details for the council to know. You know, also as a brown person, as a Latino, one of the things about eminent domain that doesn't make me excited, and a really good example in recent times have been the LA Dodgers. I love and I also dislike the Dodgers for many reasons. A few years back, when the Dodgers built their new stadium, they built it and used eminent domain, the city of Los Angeles, to kick out boroughs of Latino citizens from the area just to justify building a ballpark. And so a lot of very prosperous Latinos lived in that community, and they were outed because they wanted to build a baseball park. So on one end I love them, and on the other one I dislike them because of those decisions. But those decisions, by that time and by the logic of that council, was because they believed that was a public good. Obviously, we're not building a baseball park here. We're building critical infrastructure that's going to benefit public safety, that's going to benefit the citizens of Hermiston. So in one end, eminent domain is not a very comfortable thing, and it should always be the last resort. And I appreciate their explanation about why this is part of the process. And I believe that is in good faith, knowing that, you know, not being able to pull something out of your back pocket in the last minute. I also appreciate that this is going to be handled by a third party. So I believe that is more in good faith. Someone that's not the city, someone that's more neutral, that can, you know, accurately appraise these, do the negotiations that are needed to be done. So in that respect, I also appreciate that that's part of the process. So thank you again for explaining a little bit more of what this means and the implications, but also clarifying that anybody can still come to a council meeting and you know, express their content or discontent about the process. You know, that's what democracy is all about. And so, in one end, I agree with our counselors that, you know, May 2nd seems a little rushed, but on the other end, I know we've had conversations for years about this project, and this doesn't preclude them from coming in, having a conversation with either individually as fellow counselors or in a public meeting such as this. So as the mayor has expressed, I do not think this is one of my favorite processes. This is my second process as a counselor doing this. But I mean, I guess I should say that this is part of the process, and hopefully we don't get to that point. And I'm happy that our last people that we negotiated with seemed very happy at the very end, and I believe the community was as well. So I still stand in support for this, regardless of, you know, how not fun this part of being a counselor is, but it's also, I think, an important responsibility as a counselor as well.
I would like to say that I don't think it would hurt 30 days to postpone this for 30 days to give them an opportunity to just come in and say what they want to say or need to say, and then we take a vote on it and pass it or don't pass it. I don't think it'll hurt. 30 days, it's not gonna wreck the whole program.
Councilman
I
McCarthy?
don't think it's
A few questions, but just the May 2nd letter was essentially notice that we would be discussing this tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, so notice, again, using Epic Land Solutions, they have a large pamphlet that outlines all of their rights as property owners going through this process in the state of Oregon. So it included all of that information. It included an overall schematic of what the intention of the property was. And then it also included a detailed survey of the exact area that we'd be seeking to purchase.
The second part to that is how quickly, or would it be likely, that we'd actually enter into the negotiation process with the property owners, assuming this gets approved as is tonight?
Probably within a couple of weeks, frankly. So we have, again, Epic Land Solutions is already teed up and ready to go. They're just awaiting this authorization.
And this, my second question, this may have been referenced before, but I don't recall, is outside of public safety access. Do we have any idea about parks, schools, or other facilities that would be better accessed just by the general public using that Getman extension?
Yes, so all of the above, but maybe just by way of a specific example, and I think this may go back to the mayor's time on the school board, specific to development of Armolarby Middle School down there. There's a specific prohibition against school buses from utilizing Getman Road. I think many folks are aware the bus barn for the busing contractor is down south of the airport. In order for them to access Desert View Elementary School and Armolarby Middle School, the main way that they go through town is to actually come down 395 and again go through that First and Island intersection, rather than double back and add the cost of fuel going backwards to go to Feedville and come around that direction and come service those schools. So purely just from a cost standpoint to the school district and their busing contractor, it would save with a much more direct route. But additionally, I believe one of the single largest contributing factors to congestion at that First and Island intersection at the peak hour during school let out and drop off is from a significant amount of busing traffic that is really just transiting the area, trying to get past the high school and not even actually serving the high school.
Thank you. Others? Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Any public comment on resolution 2270? Come on.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Josh Roberts, 1709 Northeast 6th Place. I've just taken some notes here and had some thoughts I thought I might kind of share. I'm not going to go too far into the eminent domain because you guys have already talked a lot about that on both sides, other than to say that I think it's important to remember the eminent domain in the end is a government-sanctioned land grab. And we've talked about public safety and public protection, but the rights of the landowner are super important and should be taken at the utmost importance in these talks. And I know that you guys have talked about that on both sides. So as a private citizen, I wanted to express that to the council. As far as the public safety side of things, the chief rightly talked about the 3 E's. And I think he rightfully said that they don't get involved in engineering. So because I'm not standing here as a public safety official tonight, but as a private citizen, I think I will point a few things out that came to my mind. We don't want to trade one public safety problem for another. And what I mean by that is I've been around long enough to remember when Highway 395 in Pumpkin Center did not have a traffic light. It had stop signs on both sides. It's a 45-mile-an-hour zone. We had a lot of crashes up there, and we still have crashes up there even though there's a light. This intersection proposed at Port Drive is also going to be a 45-mile-an-hour zone, same number of lanes as you have up on Pumpkin Center. And I know that we already have crashes at the intersection as is laid out. So if we're increasing traffic flow, we're probably going to be increasing the amount of crashes that we have. So while we might alleviate congestion downtown, we could be creating another problem as long as the light or the infrastructure is not included. So I don't want to see us get so far ahead that in building the road that we don't take that into account as well. The same thing is true for South First and Getman Road. If I recall, that's either a 40 or a 45 mile an hour zone. And I think it's also in the county. And so my question would be, has anybody talked to the county about this change? Because that might affect the signage or the speed or things that the county might have to weigh in on as well. And so I haven't heard anything tonight that says that we're prepared as a city to make that determination without weighing in on what the county's role would be. And then finally, 2.8 million is what I heard as a price tag. I don't want to get ahead of the county or the budget talks, because I know that's coming up, but as Councilor Linton, I think rightfully expressed, and I appreciate, is that there's going to be some pretty serious talks about the budget coming up, and I'm not sure at this point whether or not that's going to be a fiscally responsible move. Now, with all that said, I am also in favor of the concept, so I do want to throw that out there. I am not anti-road. If it weren't for the eminent domain, as Councilor Primer said, and if it weren't for the budgetary constraints, everybody could come to an agreement and say, hey, this is good, and we can pay for it. I'm all for it. But these are some concerns that I had, and I wanted to throw out there as a private citizen to say, hey, you know, if you guys haven't thought about these things, I hope you'll take them into account.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you.
Others? Okay, so you have a recommendation in front of you this evening for Resolution 2270. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
You moved to approve Resolution 2270. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Second.
Moved by Mr. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Myers, that we approve Resolution 2270 as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-3 with Mr. Primer, Ms. Peterson, and Mrs. Linton in the negative. Okay, Resolution 2271, Parks and Rec Committee recommendations to name new park and legacy development Horizon Park. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Arts, would you like to talk about this?
Sure. So we have a new park going up in the Legacy Development, which is off East Bella Vista Avenue and Northeast 5th Street. And with this new park, we needed a new park name. So in February, the Parks and Recreation Committee hosted an open house for the residents of the neighborhood and the community to gather feedback on what the local neighbors wanted to have in the park and what they suggested for a name. We took that to the Parks and Recreation Committee from those name suggestions, and the committee decided that we needed a few more suggestions to make sure that we had everything that the community wanted. So went out again in March with a community-wide survey and hand-submitted surveys to the Loma Vista Elementary School students, as that is the local school up in that area. And we got 108 name suggestions coming back from those students. Quite the plethora of good names coming from there. Everything from Zebra Park to Jurassic Park.
A lot of they had in their hands at the time.
A lot of good names came out from there, and there was a handful of really good suggestions that the Parks and Recreation Committee deliberated on and ultimately came to Horizon Park as the recommendation for this new park. And so this resolution is to ask your affirmation on that name for the park, or send it back to the Parks and Recreation Committee to look over the suggestions again. But the committee and the staff look forward to adding Horizon Park as the new name.
And what will this new park look like? Can you explain some of the features that are going to be there?
Yeah, it's a 1 acre park, neighborhood park, right in the middle of the new development. It's going to be surrounded by homes similar to what Highland Park is. There's already a walking trail around it. We'll have a playground in there, a gazebo, and a half-court sport court, and then some open grass and some trees in there eventually. Right now, it is bare sand, not dirt. There's a mixture of sand and dirt out there right now, but we're looking to expand on that in the next year or two.
Great. Thank you for the process you went through in engaging the community, the local community, as well as the kids in the process. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure the Parks and Rec Committee had a lot of fun going through the process. Trying to sort through 108 names, I'm not sure I'd be excited about that process, but engaging the youth I think is super important. I always come back to the story that I tell about our water tower and the label that we ended up with, where life is sweet, came from one of our high school students. So exciting to always engage with the youth and see what their creativity comes up with. I like the name Horizon Park. It sounds great. So thank you for that process. How about other questions or comments from the council?
Other than trademark violation, I like Jurassic Park. Horizon Park sounds something to look at.
Yeah, that's
It was quite a long process and really did, go the extra mile to come up with some more unique names than the round one was. So yeah, it's a good choice.
Mayor Drotzman Park never came up?
No,
Could have submitted it.
Yeah.
Submitted it.
We didn't see that one.
Same with that fire was.
Yeah.
Everyone listed kindergarten is trying to pronounce her name.
That's right. All right. Any other questions, comments? Any public comment? Okay, you have a resolution in front of you for resolution number 2271. Can I get a motion?
I move that we.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilor Duran to adopt resolution 2271 laid upon the record, seconded by Councilor Linton. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay, Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Motion passes unanimously 8-0. Lily, did I say passes unanimously earlier? Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Next is to authorize a lease agreement with Light Flight Networks to occupy the building known as the Caretaker's Residence at the airport for use as temporary crew quarters.
Yeah, I'll ask Mr.
Morgan.
Airport liaison.
Yeah, I'm back. So, this request for you this evening is to execute a lease with Lifeline Network. You will probably notice you had a copy of the draft lease in your staff report. There's also been placed a redlined version of that lease on the council dais. The motion we were requesting was to approve the lease in substantially similar form. They did finally just get back to us some really minor changes. The only real change, the only differences in there you'll see is they just added what I equate to a punch list of items that they'd like us to do to the house. We've been aware of that. We've been working with them on that. None of those are really an issue. And then also they made the term, instead of being 5 years, down to 2 years. So I'll explain a little bit more, but I just wanted you to understand the differences that are in the council agenda packet once in front of you. So the request before this evening is for Life Flight Network to lease the airport residence for 2 years. Life Flight, for anyone who's not aware, they mainly operate helicopters. They operate some fixed wing already out of the Hermiston Airport, getting patients to hospitals and getting folks to emergency services and health services. So what we're talking about is what we refer to as the airport caretaker's residence. And so this is an aerial image of the area immediately surrounding the terminal building, which is just north of where you see Hermiston painted on the asphalt there. Specifically, the caretaker's residence is what I outlined there in red. That's the house plus basically a small fenced backyard located there just to the northeast of the main terminal building, immediately north of the fuel island there. This is a Google Street View that I just grabbed off the internet today, and you can even see our brave, fearless airport manager there working on the weed eater in the lawn there. So I had to get Rolf and throw him on the bus in that picture. So that gives you a sense of what we're talking about. That's the airport caretaker's residence itself, so you can see what we're talking about. The facility, it's about 1,700 square feet under roof, 3-bed, 2-bath home. The age is something of local lore. It's debated as to where it actually originated from. I put in my staff report, one of the stories that I had heard and seen in the airport master plan was that it had been relocated when they built the Dallas Dam. Additionally, since then, I've heard that it was actually relocated from the Walla Walla Airport back in the 50s after decommissioning a lot of facilities from World War II with residential base housing. So, long story short, it's been at the Hermiston Airport. It's effectively a manufactured home that can be moved. It's been at the Hermiston Airport in its current location somewhere around 70 years. Its historical use by the city of Hermiston and the Hermiston Airport was as the caretaker's residence. So we had on-site caretakers up there for many years, and so being able to live in the home was part of their compensation. And so it made a lot of sense to have an on-site caretaker 30, 40, 50 years ago when pilots come in the middle of the night, they may need fuel, that type of thing. That's easily solved now with card reader systems that we have at the fueling station, as well as from a security standpoint with security cameras, that type of thing. Also with the advent of cell phones being readily available and able to be called out for certain things in the middle of the night. So when our previous caretakers retired back in 2018 and we brought on Core Aviation Services, we don't compensate them with the caretaker's residence anymore, so it's been vacant since 2018. So the request from Life Flight, they'd like to base a helicopter here in Hermiston. And so what they typically do is they like to have some crew quarters on the airport actually, so that they can have a pilot and 2 medical personnel there ready to go to jump in the helicopter and take off to a call as quickly as they can. And then also park their helicopter on the apron adjacent to that location. So we offered up the caretaker's home. So once before you this evening now, again, I mentioned the only real change that they made was they changed the lease terms from 5 years to 2 years from what was in your agenda packet. You'll notice in the lease, there's some pretty simplistic, straightforward renewal language in that lease agreement. So I anticipate this lease likely being renewed several times after that initial 2 years. I'm fine with 2 years. Additionally, in terms of compensation from Life Flight, they would be leasing it at a rate of $1,500 per month. That includes the use of the home, also includes water and sewer utilities. The biggest reason why it includes the water and sewer utilities is because all that we're leasing to them is the home itself and the fenced backyard, but that home is based off of the same meter that waters all of the grass for kind of the park-like lawn there at the airport. So it just made sense to throw in the water and sewer. Additionally, we're not going to get in the business of charging them any additional tie-down fees or anything like that for parking their helicopter on the apron there. In terms of what I would call induced revenue that really isn't contemplated in this agreement, is we anticipate based on the city's profit margin for when we sell fuel and based on the volume of fuel that they would be purchasing through our city-owned fueling facilities, probably seeing a net increase in profit from jet fuel sales in the range of around $5,000 to $10,000 per year on top of the lease revenue. again, there's the airport caretaker's residence. Probably also worth just mentioning real quick in case anybody has any questions. This is a very difficult to read from your seats map of the airport terminal area master plan. But you can see right there in the middle of the map is a purple rectangle, and that is where the existing caretaker's residence is located. You can also see kind of in a line along the top some other purple boxes going along what would be an extension of Airport Way. So we have some potential options for Life Flight. I think their usage of the existing caretaker's facility, in my opinion, is probably a stopgap or a short-term solution, while they eventually, long-term, would like to actually construct a purpose-built, kind of co-located hangar that houses their helicopter and then also has their crew quarters located inside of that. I think there's two good options. One would be in that purple rectangle right in the middle where the caretaker's residence is already. In our adopted master plan approved by the FAA, we call for knocking that existing building down and building a large hangar at that location. That's one option. Then the other option would be beginning that row of large box hangars along the top there along Airport Way. So I think we've got a couple of good options for them. With the price of that helicopter, I can't imagine they want to keep it outside getting sandblasted by the Hermiston breezes for very long. So that's, I think, where we're going to be headed long term with this. Oh yeah, there you go. I knew that this thing doesn't show us on screens, and so I've gotten in to start just putting boxes on my map, so I should have moved it. All right, with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Questions, Councilor? Yeah, Councilor Peterson.
It's not so much of a question as much of a, this has got to be one of the best things I've gotten to do as far as being a counselor. Because roughly 17 years and 11 months ago, I was on a life flight with my infant, who's going to be flying the nest himself here shortly when he graduates. And so the life flight crew is amazing, and the work that they do, because we were at like Dornbecker's in like a heartbeat, and where we lived for the next 3 months. So I looked at this and it's like, almost 18 years later, and I get to be in this position, and this is a good day. This is a very good day.
Comments? Yes, Councilor Lennon.
I Googled the price of a 1,700 square foot home, and it usually run around $1,800 a month. So I think that the rent part of it should be a little higher, by $300. And also in the lease agreement, it says that it will not be asking for an increase, like yearly everybody's rent goes up. And at the original, it was 4 years that it was not going to be any increase at all. I thought that was a little bit, should be something, if it's 1 or 2%. But those are my 2 points. I think it's a good idea for them to be out there, but this is a private company, so I'm pretty sure that they can do it.
Maybe just kind of to speak, obviously the big question or open for discussion or negotiation was the price that we charge for rent. And so there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. One of the things I think we need to always remember with the airport is that it is such a niche real estate market. It's really difficult to come across comparable residences that exist on an airfield with direct access to the airport. One of the other examples that we have is over in Walla Walla. They have a similar setup with Life Flight, and they only charge $500 a month. But again, there's very different components that factor into that. Whether you're charging them tie-down fees, whether how much you're getting for fuel sales that kind of gets induced. So there's a lot of things that go into that, and so the airport board talked quite a bit about what the rent made sense at, and so the airport board felt good that the $1,500 a month with all of the things that we included there is a good price to help facilitate attracting Life Flight to the area, but also it's not too low that it doesn't help encourage them to fly the nest and go build their own hangar here in a couple of years.
Just out of curiosity, how much is the tie-down fee?
$5 a day.
$5 a day?
we don't typically get a whole lot of folks doing kind of long-term tie downs. So for the most part, the people that are doing tie downs are overnight.
Other questions, Councilor Burke?
Yeah, so I personally think this is a great idea. The benefit of having life flight this much closer. I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, sometimes minutes can save lives just in the short time that it takes them to get from, whether they're coming from Pendleton or the Tri-Cities or wherever, as opposed to just, hop, skip, and a jump to get us here. So I think that the benefit, the benefit of that $300 difference is goes in our favor personally. But it's, if my life was on the line, I would want them here as opposed to someplace else. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
Any other comments, Councilor McCarthy?
Yeah, 2. First of all, is the caretaker's residence currently not being utilized at all?
Correct. It's been vacant since 2018.
Thank you. Second, assuming this wasn't on the table, where would usually Lifeline be originating from if they needed to get here?
I believe they have a facility in Pendleton, and so they do already deposit or pick up folks at the hospital. There is a helipad there at the hospital, and so this would allow them to, if there's something in the relatively close region, they get a call, they take off from the airport here, go pick them up, and would still be able to deposit them at the hospital. So right now they're having to dispatch that person or helicopter from Pendleton or Walla Walla, depending on where the call comes in from.
Thank you.
Councilor Pierce?
And speaking from experience, some of the most terrifying words you can hear are the Life Flight team that's on its way. It'll be here in about an hour. That's not an hour you want to wait. So if we can have them here in a place that wasn't getting used anyway, and we're not going to be able to collect rent on it, and again, that's one less hour that someone's going to have to wait to try and get them. You don't get life flighted out of here unless a life is on the line. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of this.
Any public comment? Absolutely. Come on. You're public.
Hi, I'm Rolf Lindbergh. I'm the airport manager, 1600 Airport Way. Just a clarification comment. A few years ago, the FAA came in with a rule that said you can no longer have residences on airports, meaning somebody living there. Crew quarters, people on duty, like life flight, or if a pilot comes in at 10 o'clock at night and stays because they're leaving early in the morning, the FAA says that's okay. So we call it a residence, but we haven't been able to use it as a residence since the FAA came in with that rule. So the limited use it's had is we have had some pilots go in there and rest where they got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and came to Hermiston, and then they're going to leave in the afternoon. So we've had a place for them to couch and stay like that. But other than that, it's not something that we can go out and solicit people to come stay at the airport or live there or anything like that. It's for crew quarters. It's duty time.
Any other public comment? Okay. I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So, Councilor Primer motion to authorize city staff to execute the proposed lease in substantially similar form to what has been presented, seconded by Councilor Durham. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to city committee and liaison reports. Any city committee or liaison reports?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had our public safety committee meeting today, right prior to the council session, and during that, one of the things that came out of it was a recognition for job well done to B Squad by by their supervisor, Sergeant Martin, about how well the job they've been doing. This crew also included two of the gentlemen that received the award for pulling the victim out of the river here a couple months ago. So obviously, way to go, those guys. Another thing that Jason talked about was that the crime stats, how most of the criminal activity and that's being taken is going up, but luckily for us, violent crime is going down, or is down. And finally, during that part of it, they're rolling out a new program called TIP 411. It's a program that is on phones. You can have it on your phones. You can use your phone to report crimes anonymously, completely anonymously, with the ability also to include video and photos. More to come on that one. They'll be rolling that out here for, I think, Jason, the end of the week. And information on that can be accessed through the Hermiston City Police's website. So it's from what it sounds like it's going to be a good program. There's a few things that a few questions that'll have to be answered in regards to a couple things, but it's as a whole, it sounds pretty cool, pretty exciting technological thing. Also, I had an EOTech committee meeting last week. One of the things that was brought up, the grass is now coming in quite nicely up there on the Hero section. The parking, it looks great up there. We also got a couple of updates. The barns, there's some possible issues going on there that they're trying to work through right now. And that was really about it. It was a pretty brief meeting, my first one, so I kind of liked having a easy, soft, underhand throw for me on the first one. And then just on the other side, another side of thing, one that's on one of the actual council committees, but it's a committee that I serve on, is a Warjik committee, is I'll be giving a briefing for that and for our area to the state executive, state interoperability executive council tomorrow online. So that's all the committee reports I got.
Other committee reports, yeah, Councilor.
We had a meeting with CAB last week. We had one student and it was confidential, so there's nothing else we can say about it.
I'm glad you're back up and running, though.
Yes, I enjoy working with the kids to help them out so their life won't go differently, and help them be successful. I do have a couple of questions, though.
On the committees?
Well, actually, it's about bringing Mr. Rose in to give us an update. I have some questions for him, and also the director of CCS have some questions.
You can bring it up under council report. How about that?
On the council report? Okay.
Yep. No more committee reports?
No.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Councilor Kramer, this 411, is this a statewide project? No, it's Hermiston specific.
It's a private company. We looked at the software at the chief of police conference. I think Lieutenant Guerrero said we're going to be the third Oregon entity. I know the Dalles, we reached out to the Dalles PD. They've been using it. It's been very successful. We currently have a process for taking anonymous information. It's just not user-friendly. It gets checked, just not regularly. This provides the opportunity for instantaneous two-way communication.
So it's texting, phone call, all of it?
Yep, through an app.
Yeah, cool. Oh, you have to download the app to participate.
But we can also push information out through that app. I spoke briefly about major crimes and the resources it takes to canvass a neighborhood, knocking on doors, checking for video. We still want to have that contact, but this will also just provide the opportunity for the citizens to provide us information.
And they'll be able to download this app when?
Well, the committee was told Friday is the rollout, and so I'm going to hold Lieutenant Guerrero to that.
Yeah, Councilor Guerrero?
Does this app allow for multiple languages?
It does. Hopefully that's the only question, because there was other questions that I OLEG'd to Robert to answer, but it does, yes.
I do believe Lieutenant Guerrero also brought up that there's also a phone number that you can actually text to if you don't have a smartphone application, so you can actually text to a number as well. So yeah, that we already discussed that issue.
If you didn't want to download the app, you can just text directly to the number.
Yeah, and they provided the number for that as well.
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, Councilman. Yeah, Councilman McCarthy.
That's isn't it?
Is there any, people like to abuse apps. So has there been any concern or addressing after talking with maybe, I can't remember where you said the city you spoke of before. Thank you. About whether or not people have used that for misreporting things or just, I'm going to spam the police department because it's anonymous. Is there any sort of control over that, or?
Sky's the limit. It's anonymous, and so we'll have to navigate what comes in and filter it appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because that's kind of what comes to my attention too, is like the neighbor's dog's barking. You know?
I was gonna ask that.
It'll be really easy, so I'll do it, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, so there's got to be a process by which we can filter through that, and I'm guessing that it's a trial basis, so if it isn't beneficial to your department, you probably can get rid of it.
Define trial.
Yeah.
We're in it for 3 years.
Oh,
So they gave us
okay.
a significant discount to secure it as a result of the chief of police conference, but I'm comfortable where we're going.
Because this is such a interesting technology and technological advance for us, would it be possible maybe to get an update on it here, like say in a month or so, just to tell us how it, tell us how it's going, and then maybe do a little bit more expanded.
Yeah, we can do that. We also, just for the rest of the council, the meeting we had tonight was actually about 2.5, 3 weeks later than we normally do. So if not that, then we can definitely do it at the next Public Safety Committee meeting and provide that information to everyone.
Okay. Thanks. Any other committee reports? Mayor's report. First of all, I want to thank Councilor Primer again for filling in for me. We were at the League of Oregon Cities. I was at the League of Oregon Cities board meeting right before the League of Oregon Cities spring conference. So thank you for the council for allowing me to participate in the spring conference. It was at Seaside. Seaside has a wonderful new community facility for the community that size. It was a beautiful state-of-the-art facility. Seaside did a good job at entertaining us. Weather like perfect switch. It rained as we came in, and then it got like 75 and sunny the rest of the time we were there. So it was beautiful. A lot of networking, getting to meet other members. That's always probably my favorite part of the conferences. Is getting to network with other communities and other leaders to talk about the challenges that they work through as well. So that was nice. Good education. It just seems to be, it just continues to get better. I don't know if that's your observation. Councilor Harden was also there, Councilor Smith, or City Manager Smith. And the education opportunities, the people, the spokespeople that were there, just high-level individuals, good conversation, so a lot of valuable information. So just appreciate the opportunity to go and participate in that. So thank you, Councilor Primer, for filling in for me.
No problem, sir. I don't mind covering for you when you go to the coast.
I didn't get to have
Just saying.
a bonfire on the beach,
Just saying.
so I'm not bragging about it or anything. Seaside did a good job. I had a nice conversation with the governor last week. She was in the community in the region to hear about, mostly about the nitrate issue in Utah and Laurel County. She had a breakfast with me and Commissioner Duran and Joe Fumara from the Public Health Department. Nice meeting. she's always very gracious with her time, good listener, good contributor to the conversation. So I appreciated her willingness to come out to Hermiston, spend some time here. She actually stayed 2 nights in a local hotel. We had breakfast at Hales downtown, so supporting local businesses as well. Spent a lot of time in our region. I know she went to Morrow County, then she went to Pendleton, she was in LeGrand, and I think up to Wow. So she's been all around the region. So appreciated the opportunity for getting to speak with her one-on-one and kind of talk through some issues and challenges that we have as a community firsthand. So that's all I've got. Council reports. Ms. Linton, your questions?
Yes. I would like for Mr. Rose, I would like for Mr. Rose to come in and give us an update. I've been contacted about drug use by homeless people in the library bathroom, and that the attendance of people going to the library is going down. We're starting to leave and go to Stanfield, and a few other things. Also, an update from the director of CCS. I've been told that they're being sued by federal court, in the federal court, and also that different ones, because they're so understaffed, like the previous occupancy, that people are missing appointments. They'll be waiting for pickup, or they'll be waiting to talk to someone, and they don't have no one to show up. And some people, so have them come and address those things. Then I would also like, we've talked about this before, about the admission level. I would like to know, present it to the council, what the admission level was before Amazon came and where it is now. And I don't know when we're going to have an update on the rules for city council, because I've been asking about city council members being able to add items to the agenda. And also last meeting I brought up of having the Umatilla County Fire Department be invited on a quarterly basis and give an update with what they're doing. And hopefully that can start in June. And also the defibrillators. We can talk to them about them getting defibrillators.
One of the challenges, Councilor Linton, is as individuals, we can't give direct orders to the administration. Now, we can vote as a council to give direct orders to the administration. And so part of the process that we go through on an annualized basis is the conversation around strategic planning. And that's where we sit down as a group and kind of organize our thoughts and ideas, right? And so at that point, we can say, Mr. Smith, it would be important for us as a group to know more about whatever. And so at that time would be a great time to present it. Or you can say to the council, I believe we should bring in the public safety department or the fire department, and we can't mandate that they come and talk to us, but we can ask them.
So that's what I was saying, invite them to come.
Yeah, and we can invite them.
Right.
And so we can say as a council, the council would like to, but we have to speak as an agency, right? We can't be as an individual. And so one of the things that you can propose during your council actions would be, Mr. Mayor, I would like us to have a conversation about public safety or fire, and if the council so chooses, I would suggest that we invite them. And how does the council feel about that? And if the council is in full support, we can come to a unanimous consensus and then give direction to the administration. And so I think your questions are valid. I want to make sure that they're being addressed, and you can propose them as, Mr. Smith, this is what I'm hearing on the street. And you can propose an answer. But to direct him, I think, is inappropriate unless it's driven by the entire council.
Well, I do apologize. I didn't know I was directing anything.
Yeah. So I think just in the future, when you phrase your questions, Mr. Smith, I heard CCS is having problems with blah, blah, blah. Can you answer that for accuracy? You can't say, Mr. Smith, I want you to have CCS come to the council and speak and address these questions. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So, other comments from the council? Yeah.
So coming up this week, we have an Oregon Disability Commission meeting. As I mentioned last time, we are onboarding several new commission members. To join the commission, you just put in an application, it goes through a process, and then you can see if you can get appointed by the governor to a commission. There are lots of commissions out there. Now, we asked for a map to be made of where all of the disability commissioners were located, and I'm the only one east of the Cascades, like through the entire state. So it's like 2/3 of the state, and here's me. There are 2 spots open. I'm really hoping somebody from our 2/3 of the state will apply. But there's lots of commissions out there. And we have a voice out here. And, you know, I would love to see us dotting that map all over the place. But when I saw that map, I was just like, oh my, this is not okay. So is it getting on commission? There's lots of them out there. If you have a special interest and you're like, I know about that thing and it's important to me, then get on the state website, apply to get in. Again, you just have to go through a vetting process and get, you know, it takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it if you're passionate about it. Till then, you can just go ahead and start going to the meetings. They're through Zoom. You learn lots of stuff. The people are great. And everyone who goes to those meetings are as invested as you are in that thing. And I would love to see us lighten up the map, because I saw that and I was just like, oh man, we have a voice out here. Let's, and what I wanted to see is making some noise. And that was just that one commission. I know that someone from Pendleton is now on the Arts Commission, which is fantastic. But that is a way of getting voices heard where you don't have to get elected. So, hey, that's fun.
This is governor appointment.
This is by governor appointment, but you can put in an application to be considered as an interested party, and you know, as I said, it takes a little bit of time, but it's a process and it's there, and there's lots of different ways of getting involved. And I saw me out there, but it was just like, oh.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are, I don't know, 30 or 40 different committees that are governor appointed that have representations across the state. And it's a great way to engage as a community member, as a counselor, with areas of interest. You know, yours is in disability services. There are lots of, you know, ODF&W has committees, and there's other agencies, parks committees that, you know, if you have a special interest in certain services, you could volunteer your time to do that and get an appointment. And you're right, often underrepresented in East Oregonians. So it's a great way to engage and be recognized and make true legitimate action at the state level, because I think the governor's office does take those committee recommendations into consideration when they propose either legislation or budget adjustments. So it is a great way to impact decisions on a statewide level, and we need more East Oregonian representatives. So thank you for doing that.
They ask for our direct feedback. They say, hey, we're putting this bill forward. What do you think? You know, and also we can bring community things to mind. I mentioned something like with my health insurance is now saying, oh, we have to get your prescription through us. That can be a hurdle, you know, especially for people with disabilities and that sort of thing. So, you know, we're able to bring, you know, things directly to the state attention without having to, you know, take a lengthier process. And so if anyone ever has any questions about, you know, the commission application process, let me know. I would love to talk to you about it. It's a great way of getting involved, and you can have a direct impact. But hey, the meetings are open to everyone, so we just hop on in.
Yes, Councilor Brooke.
This past week, I also had the privilege of having a conversation with Governor Kotek. It was great to have a face-to-face conversation. Councilor Duran was also present, and Councilor Duran did, if I may, wonderful in that meeting. She expressed a lot of things that we've talked here on council, a lot of the needs that we have here in our community. So I applaud her for doing the work that she did. We talked about housing, we talked about obviously the nitrate issue, also talked about mental health. And so it was a good conversation, and it was great to just have our representation there and for the governor to hear from us. So again, I applaud you, Councilor Duran, you did wonderful. My next comment was, as far as I know we have a budget committee meeting this upcoming Thursday. I'm actually going to be on a flight to Cincinnati because I'm going to receive an award from my alma mater as a prestigious alumni. So I will not be here in person, but I've talked to City Manager Smith about getting a link. So I will be with you guys, hopefully electronically, as we go through that. I don't, especially in an important conversation like that, I want to be present. I feel like that's my duty as well. So I won't be with you guys in person, but I will be with you guys electronically, hopefully.
Congratulations, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Prestigious, distinguished citizen or distinguished alumni award. So congratulations. How many recipients?
It was just one, so just myself.
From Xavier?
Yes, from Xavier.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
I'm looking forward to returning back to the university where I lived there for 4 years. So I'm excited, very excited.
Well, I think we can excuse you for that. So we'd love to have you participate, but if it doesn't work out, enjoy the opportunity and the experience because it's well deserved. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other comments? Yes, Mr. McCarthy.
Earlier today, I attended a Hermiston Downtown District meeting for the business that I work for, but it brought up on their agenda, so I just wanted to bring it up here that June 3rd will be the Hermiston Art Fest, right up here on Festival Street, and it's free to attend. There'll be opportunities for voting for your favorite artist. There'll be just as the public, as well as separately recruited adjudicators. They do 2 separate giveaways each year, support with local businesses, restaurants remain open during those times. And they'll be, I think they're still in the process of potentially securing entertainment, and they'll be they'll be able to utilize some new equipment from their Amazon grant they got last year for new sound and new trailer. They're just looking for stores and stuff like that for that right now, but they're excited to do that on. And then, of course, that'll be the first of 3 festivals they're doing in cooperation with Parks and Rec. Later on, August will be Melon Fest, and then October they'll have another Cork and Barrel event.
Did they speak anything about this new incubator project?
Yeah, they're actually going to be on the radio chamber show tomorrow morning talking about that. So far, they only have 1 application in, but that will require board approval, which could mean that the board is not supportive of that one particular application, so it's not an automatic in. And the current program guidelines are application in, I think, before July 1st in order to qualify for the 6 months rent covered.
Where's
part of
that
the program?
Where's the location?
So it's right next to Lucky Ann's. It's where the Goss Jewelers moved out of. They've had a couple of pop-ups, like a weekend or a day or 2 type events going in there, sometimes 2 or 3 at the same time going in. So far, none of those, it seems, have put in an application for the program. And I don't know what the current, I don't know the business that is the current applicant, probably better that way. But they're hoping that with a new push before the deadline, they'll get a few more people in. They want to see more retail down there. So they're crossing their fingers on that one.
Yeah, I was excited to read that. This conversation City Manager Smith and I have had for years, so it's an idea that I think potentially could bear some fruit for a new young entrepreneur or old entrepreneur to start a business downtown.
I'd like to see a toy store or a men's clothing store personally.
Men's clothing and toy store. And you're on the board?
Well, I'm not, but the radio station is a member of the district.
All right. Any other comments? Council, yes, Ms. Brown?
Yes, as Mr. or Councilor Barron said, I did have the opportunity to speak with Governor Kotek, as well as other representatives also from the community. It was quite an honor to be able to sit down and actually have a conversation with her. You know, I think sometimes me personally, sitting here making decisions, I know they're important, but I think when it makes our role more relevant is when we actually sit down with legislators and be able to voice our concerns and share some of the things that, you know, our community faces. So I appreciate the opportunity and, you know, to be able to do that. And as you stated earlier, appreciate her time and her willingness to listen and not make promises, but at least be able to let us know, you know, that she will take what we say into consideration. And although she wasn't taking notes, but her staff was taking notes, and so I appreciate that, as well as, you know, your input and your ability to also be able to take time off from work because you were teaching, and to step away from that to put on your counselor hat says a lot about you too. I also want to say, gosh, you know, I'm so proud that you were able to be that committed, Councilor Peterson, to, you know, the disability services and being a commissioner and being able to have that much passion and to realize that you're the only person on this side of the Oregon makes me feel so proud of you. So thank you for doing that, you know, because it's important. You know, while I was helping put on this resource fair, you know, for families with children with disabilities, it was something that I was asked to do, but at the same time, I welcomed it because it gives me an opportunity to learn about a community that, you know, I often don't come across and provide like a direct kind of service for them. So thank you for doing that. And I also want to thank the city. This year, we were fortunate enough to have 2 Cinco de Mayo festivities. So 1 outdoors, 1 indoors, and I want to thank the city for being open, you know, and working with Jose Garcia and all of the folks that were involved, as well as EOTech and the staff, to also provide a venue for those individuals that, you know, wanted to do something. Hopefully, you know, next year there's some teamwork happening so that, you know, large crowds can be gathered in hopefully one location so that no one feels like, you know, they're competing with one another. But I appreciate what was done. I really do. And I am also part of CAP, something that I had not done in, gosh, 7 years almost. So it was really neat to be able to serve in that capacity, and thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, to be able to be assigned to that committee.
Both of you are perfect fitting examples of professional women that can demonstrate to young, sometimes troubled children, examples of leadership and provide them some guidance. So I thought you guys would be perfect matches for that. So thank you for serving in that capacity. Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Burr?
I'll be brief. This is also, you know, we had talked about the Police Week. This is also National Correctional Employees Week. So, you know, we have, what, 5 correctional facilities within 60 miles of this location. And we have people that live in our community that work at basically all of them. So to those folks that I no longer serve with in that capacity, I wish to pass on my thanks and respect, because it's a tough job, and if you've never walked behind the walls, you don't know just how hard it can be.
Yeah. Very true. Respect our correctional officers a lot, and they've gone through a tremendous amount the last couple of years. It's been very tough on them from a labor force standpoint, and understand that we've been working a lot more than should be necessary. So, yeah, Councilor Harden.
Yes, I too attended the conference at Seaside, and of course that's where I moved from, okay, since 1980, okay, to move to Hermiston, and give you a clue, those nice days that we had down there is not normal, okay, because they get 80 inches of rain a year. So, but the conference was excellent, okay. I covered about every topic you could possibly cover. And the facility was already built. That facility's been around for a while. It's been kept up really, really well. But I thought LOC did an excellent job of presenting it, and it was just incredible. So, and looking forward to them having us back again over there this morning. So, man, it was a great conference. Appreciate the opportunity to go.
Really quick, this is also National Teacher Appreciation Week. So we also want to thank all the teachers that are preparing our future leaders. And so we happen to have one of them. So thank you, Roy, for working with the kids and giving your best despite some of the challenges, that the schools have faced over the recent years. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We entrust our teachers with our children every day, and so it's a challenging, difficult, and I'm sure rewarding job all at the same time. And we value them very much in our community, so it's always a great opportunity to celebrate them and the hard work that they do for our education of our youth. Speaking of youth, our youth advisory report from Stormy Richmond tonight. Welcome, Stormy.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. I have a few things to talk about tonight, but I am going to regret to inform you this will be my last time coming and attending these meetings. I'm graduating, and we are going to bring up new YEC members from underclassmen. Hopefully my sister will join. Get in there. I'm going to try and push her. But I just want to thank you guys so much for this amazing opportunity to attend these meetings and know what's going on in my community and how to professionally run a meeting. But yes, I just want to thank you all so much for having me here. For the school, we had my last prom. The Saturday was extremely successful. I'd like to credit to the ASB for having a great setup, and honestly, it was definitely one to remember, so I just wanted to throw that out there. We have a lot of AP exams going on currently this week and last week, so credits to those who are going through those times as well. It's a very hard time for school year with the prom and everything going on and so close to graduation. But basically, transitioning into the next school year is what's primarily being focused right now, with juniors becoming seniors and sophomores becoming juniors, etc. So we're just trying to get forecasting done and over with and cherishing our last moments as seniors. And Mr. Ron took the words right out of my mouth. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I just do want to thank all of the teachers for teaching us to be great leaders and so forth and so on. And then National Police Week as well. Thank you very much for all the service that you do for our city and keeping us safe as students as well. We do appreciate you guys very much. And then, yeah, that is all that I have for you guys tonight.
Stormy, what's the future look like for you?
I will be attending OSU. Go Beavs.
Well played.
I'm getting my bachelor's in political science, and I will become a paralegal, a lawyer's assistant. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully this isn't the last opportunity you participate in civic government. We need good young volunteers to participate in this process and other community processes, so hopefully you continue to stay engaged. I have a daughter who will be graduating from Oregon State University in June, so I very much support the Beavers as well. So congratulations to you on your entrance into one of our finest institutions in the state of Oregon. And we wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for your service to the city and to the Hermiston City Council. We appreciated having you on board and look forward to more engagement from future leaders at the school as well. So please pass along our appreciation and thanks. I'm guessing this is not the last meeting for a youth advisor, is it?
I'm not sure. I think it is for me. That's what Mr. Davis told me. He was
Okay.
like,
Is
but-
there others that may come?
I could talk to them about that and see
Do you know
what is happening.
You don't?
Haven't heard.
Okay, and whether you don't know either. Okay. Well, if this is the last meeting, please pass along to the rest of your youth advisory group. We appreciate seeing them all the time.
Yeah.
And congratulations to those that are graduating. We look forward to continuing that relationship next year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Smith?
I have nothing.
What?
I think we had a lot of discussion. I
We did have a
touched
lot.
on all the meetings I went to, and
All right, so kind of another important meeting coming up
we have a budget committee Thursday evening,
Thursday evening at,
5:30.
okay, and dinner is at
5:30.
5:30.
5.
5, thank you.
Dinner will be there at 5.
Meeting starts at 5:30
Correct.
at EOTech.
Correct.
Okay, so hopefully all of you have that on your calendar and you've got your budget book already and you're starting to review it. So, nothing else, all right. Yes, we do have that. Thank you, that's why, you're president. So we are going to recess for the executive session. The City Council of the City of Hermiston will now meet in executive session, in the executive session room for the purpose of discussing matters pertaining to negotiating real property transactions and to consider records that are exempt by law for public inspection. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602E, which allows the council to meet in executive session and conduct deliberations with persons designated by the council to negotiate real property transactions, and ORS 192.6602F to consider records that are exempt by law for public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are excluded. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No final decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, the council will return to open session, which the audience may attend. The executive session will last approximately 20 minutes. So.
That was the round.
Yeah, 20-minute job.
And I started at 7:30.
Yeah, right, I saw that.
Yeah, maybe the
We were overly generous, overly optimistic. Yeah.
All right, we will reconvene the city council for May 8th, 2023. Anything else, Mr. Smith?
No.
Anything else for the good of the order for the council?
No.
We are adjourned.